Mission statement, the Brookings School District prepares all learners to be confident, engaged citizens, empowered to impact the ever-changing and interconnected world.
Thank you. Now is our time to have conflict of interest declarations. So this is a time for board members to identify any items on the agenda that could be considered of conflicts of interest. Dr. Willard, do we have any this evening?
We do not have any to present this evening.
Thank you. All right, this is an opportunity for comments from the members of the audience to address the board concerning issues that are not on the agenda. Per the policy KD, presentations should be as brief as possible. Unless an extension of time is granted, a speaker will be limited to 5 minutes. I think we have Jeanette, I saw on the list. Ooh, okay, great. Thank you. All right, Jeanette Gibbons. Just tell everyone who you are too, and the green light. I don't think so.
Okay,
There you go.
All right,
Thank you.
Jeanette
Hi.
Gibbons. I live at 1709 Dirtall Drive, and I appreciate this chance to come and talk to you again. And my mission today is just some updates regarding COVID. And there's a lot of things going on. I'm keeping track of some things out in Pier, a lot of legislation going through that affects our children. And COVID updates, there's things happening at the government, federal government level that have just kind of come across the desk this week. So I just want to go back a little bit historically. We started out January 20th, 2020 with the first case of COVID diagnosed in the United States. In March, we had our lockdowns, and fear tactics led to a lot of the things that happened in the early COVID pandemic. During fall 2020 through the spring 21, we had the masks, of course, in our schools. And recent evidence, and even things that I was looking at back in 2020, indicated that masks really don't work. And I have a recent study here. There's been over 700 reports done about the ineffectiveness of masks, and 95 masks as well. And throughout the entire pandemic, one thing that troubled me greatly was censorship. And I know I've mentioned this more than once, but how much did censorship change the trajectory of what happened in our communities, what happened in our families, what happened in our schools, all across our state and country, around the world? I have a list that I printed off of almost 200 doctors that were censored. Medical doctors, chiropractors, naturopaths, and I can name people in our own region, people in our own community that were censored. So that's very troubling, and it did change the course of our pandemic. If people knew now what they weren't told then, we would have all made different decisions, I'm pretty sure. So that's some of the things historically. The vaccines, of course, were rolled out in December of 21. Those were experimental and continue to be experimental. Now, I've had some conversations with people about the FDA approved. I've contacted all of the pharmacies right here in Brookings, any place that gave the shots. I've contacted pharmacies in Sioux Falls and had quite a nice conversation with a director of a pharmacy in Sioux Falls, indicating that, well, yes, we kind of had this FDA-approved vaccine. However, it was never available. They never ordered it in, and I doubt that anyone in our entire state ever had an FDA-approved vaccine. Now, I'm not sure the FDA-approved is really that comforting. If anyone does a little bit of research about the number of FDA drugs that have been out there, that have been recalled and people died, cancer, that's not an assurance that everything is A-okay because we have an FDA-approved vaccine or drug. So I realize we did things to try to get back to normal, but I think it happened without people being fully informed. So now, kind of coming up to speed on what's happening now, I came across a February 9th document that the COVID National Public Health Emergency will end for real, and the date set now is May 11th of 2023. So we've been under a national public health emergency up to this time. South Dakota ended the public health emergency June 30th, 2021. Guess we just are a little bit faster out here. So now what's come up as a concerning issue is that the board that gives recommendations to the CDC has now said that the COVID vaccines should be added to the immunization schedule. So if I go out to the South Dakota Department of Health, which I did, on our website, COVID vaccines are now listed on the immunization schedule for our children. starting at 6 months. And again, I'll remind everybody, those are experimental. And where is the informed consent for anyone? Anyone that has taken the vaccine, did you honestly have a conversation with your healthcare professional about the pros and cons and that these were experimental? But when it comes to children, I draw the line. I mean, I will stand and fight for the children every step of the way. I will not back down. And so out in Pierre now we have a bill that's come through that is up for discussion tomorrow and Wednesday that is addressing whether these vaccines should just be allowed to be added to the immunization schedules or not. Now, once it's on that schedule, it looks pretty official. Now, I'm thinking of myself as a new parent, and I'm handed the immunization schedules. I leave the hospital with my newborn, and it says on there, at 6 months, you need to get that baby in for a COVID shot. We're not thinking ahead to even school and what they have to enter school. And it looks very official on that list. So I just encourage everyone to do everything you can to inform yourself, to educate yourself.
Thank you.
And it requires research. And if you don't have time for research, I kind of know somebody that likes to do that.
Thank you.
Please contact me.
I have Thomas. No? Okay, thank you. All right. Are moving on to our favorite part, and that's the best award recipients for the district. And so I'm going to kick it over to Dr. Willard.
Well, board members and those in the audience here tonight, those listening at home, because we know that we have YouTube followers as well, the BEST Award stands for Bobcats Exhibiting Success and Triumphs. It's an opportunity to recognize staff members, learners, community members, people that have made contributions to our school district in impactful ways. And this evening we have 3 individuals to share. And the first one that I want to have us join in sharing is Jean Kirschman. And it's something that was brought forward by one of her colleagues and somebody that I know I have a tremendous amount of respect for, Alyssa Loffman. And the BEST Award states, to say Jean is beloved at Brookings High School would be an understatement. The library is located at the center of BHS, the heart of the building, if you will. I could not come up with a more fitting metaphor for Jean Kirschman if I tried. She is quite literally the heart of BHS. To put it simply, Ms. Kirschman deserves this award because her passion for reading and literature is truly contagious. She is extremely innovative, creative, adaptive, and professional. Everything an all-star librarian should be. Jean inspires students, colleagues, support staff, etc. on a daily basis. The culture she has created here at Brookings High School is truly remarkable. We are a school filled with lifelong learners and lifelong readers, and that would not be possible without the hard work and dedication of Jean. And it gives me great honor, board members, to share that Jean truly is a rock star and is appreciated not only among her colleagues in the school, but across the entire state of South Dakota. And for that, it gives me great honor to have you join me in congratulating Jean this evening on being named a Bobcat Best. Jean.
Thank you.
This is where we hide quickly.
Thank you, Jean. Congratulations.
And board members, we do have another Best Award this evening, and this actually is a tandem of individuals. And it is related to our special education services that we provide at the Hillcrest Elementary School. And it goes to Kelsey Klosterman and Allie Casa. And the Best Award reads, these 2 ladies in our special education department are amazing. And there's a big exclamation point after that. They are here every day with a positive attitude and willing to drop anything to help, and always willing to work with learners. with a smile on their face. The activities they do with their groups are engaging and make learning fun. They encourage and support both learners as well as staff members in our Hillcrest family. In my mind, they are the best and deserve this recognition. And again, I see the work that they do when I visited the schools and talked to them individually. And this nomination is but a taste and sample of the work that they do, board members. And so it gives me great honor this evening to recognize both Kelsey and Allie as some Bobcat Bests.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, thank you.
Enjoy conferences.
Oh yeah, conferences, they gotta go. Really proud of everyone on the best tonight, so thank you. We appreciate all that you guys do. All right, moving on to presentation 6.2, Career and Technical Education. This is the CTE month recognition, and I don't know who I'm handing it off to. Okay, good. Not on the agenda.
Well, board
I'll
members,
let
as
Clint
you
go.
see somebody approaching, this is Abby Page. Abby is our Director of Career and Technical Education in the school district, and we're really honored to have her here this evening. Abby, what I would suggest, you have the names up there with you. Maybe for the sake of recording, we could have you sit by the microphone and announce them, and then I'll hand out the
Thanks,
awards. You can share what this is all about for the board members and those listening at home.
Yeah, absolutely. So February is National Career and Technical Education Month. And so we figure the best way to celebrate is by recognizing some student success. So our CTE teachers in middle school and high school nominated 5 students to receive the Champion of CTE Award. And this award is given to students who have really just displayed a lot of leadership and excellence in the classroom. So tonight, 4 of the 5 recipients are here. And so before I share their names, I just have one quote from one of these recipients that I was going to share. So when asked about CTE classes, they said, CTE classes are the most important and beneficial classes a student can take. They prepare students for real life, not memorizing questions and answers for an exam at the end of the semester. I am so grateful for all of the CTE classes offered at Brookings High School. They have changed the course of my life. So with that being said, I would like to invite each of these recipients up to receive their award when I call their name. And then if you wouldn't mind, we'd love a picture. Yeah. Okay, so first we would like to congratulate Elizabeth Wainman. Egan Niawanda. Risa Zielinski. Olivia Mulhair. And although not able to join us tonight, I'd still like to recognize our 5th student, Aiden Muzzy.
Congratulations, everyone. Thank you.
And if I may, point of privilege, Madam President, I would just ask that we have a couple of CTE teachers in the room. If you would stand and be recognized as well, I think that would equally be appropriate. So Abby, Josh, thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Am I moving on to the presentation from the Activities Department? Is that correct? Yeah? You ready? Another recognition first? Okay. Okay. Is that a part of this?
All right, good afternoon, or evening, whichever it is.
Hello.
A few general thoughts, and then
Will you
I'll...
tell everyone watching who you
Oh, yeah,
are?
you
And
bet.
thanks, Mike.
Yep, so I'm Mike Jewett, I'm the Director of Student Activities for the district, and much of what I'm going to share tonight is specific towards the high school. As a general statement, I would say our middle school numbers have remained constant in the 2 years that I've been activities director, and what I mean by that is that we'll get between 80 and 90 middle, 7th and 8th grade girls out for volleyball, and we'll get, about 60 7th and 8th grade boys out for football. And those numbers, if we went into the winter seasons, have stayed constant throughout. But we do have a drop-off, which naturally occurs when you go from middle school to high school. And so part of our challenge as coaches, directors, advisors is keeping kids interested and helping them maintain that connection. I mean, research shows that those that are in activities, they stay out of trouble, their GPAs are higher, their leadership skills are developed, that sense of belonging, enhances their overall experience. So that's something that is a focus area for us, and then as I get into the high school numbers, we'll talk more about that too. So am I in control of the slides up here too? Is that what I'm led to believe? All right. So the first slide I'm just going to show you is our fall participation numbers just for our girls. And the one constant, if you want to note this, is that we have 569 females in the high school this year, 569. So when it says 135 young ladies participate in a fall sport, and then the pie graph is broken down by grade. And one of the things that you'll also notice is that our sophomore girls do not have a real strong interest in athletics, but they have a real strong interest in the fine arts. And so you'll see a disproportionate number or a lower number per se for 10th grade girls than you will probably the other three classes. But when we get to the fine arts, you'll see a larger number than maybe that is average. And so if I compare that to last year, just so you have an idea, 135 girls participated in fall sports last year, or this year, 151 participated last year. So we lost some. Our cross-country numbers were down a little bit. Our competitive cheer numbers were up as a total, but we had more 7th and 8th graders on the competitive cheer team than we had the year before. And again, this is just high school. So it gives you a little bit of an idea. I'm going to keep moving through them unless you have questions, so just interrupt me if you do. And then the next one is fall sports participation for high school boys. Again, 141, and the constant there is we have 520 males in the high school. So 569 girls in the high school, 520 boys in the high school, 141 participated, 148 participated in fall sports last year, so almost similar number. And keep in mind that we have a larger population or larger enrollment in the high school this year than we had last year. So that will have an impact on the overall percentages. Winter sports participation, 74 girls participated in winter sports. And then last year would have been 71. So you can kind of see where what I say it's constant, it's pretty similar. And then winter sports participation for high school boys, 77. And last year there were 84 boys that participated in winter sports. Fine arts. Not to anybody's surprise, there's a large interest in the 9th grade, 146, but the 10th grade usually drops off much more, and it hasn't, and I alluded to that with the girls. So 429 high school girls participated in a fine art, and compare that to last year, 394 participated in a fine art. So those numbers have grown, and that's a credit to our directors, our advisors for what they're doing with their programs and the type of experience they're providing. And then on the boys' side of things, 280 high school boys participate in a fine art or are participating in a fine art, and last year that would have been 239. So that's growing as well.
Mike, is some of that, we had a huge ninth grade come in this year. Is some of that, those numbers you feel due to that?
Yeah, I
as
think
well?
that influx impacts it. But if I look at the percentages, like, for example, this year, 76% of girls are participating in a fine art. Last year was 75. This year, 54% of boys are participating in fine art. Last year was 48%.
Okay.
So that one is, there's just a greater interest. So the percentage, even though there's a larger class, is still increased somewhat. And then we'll go to club participation. And I would just preface this, not everybody turned in their club numbers for us. We for example, we started a chess club. If there's interest, we make them do a survey, Dr. Von Fischer and I. We'll have students that'll reach out to me, hey, we'd like to start a club. Okay, here's what you have to do. And we make them survey the student body. And if they come back and there's significant interest, then we'll ask them to write a mission statement, and not a constitution per se, but I want something that's concrete that gives them some direction. And so within about a week, I think Jenna was just here, York. No, maybe Jenna's still here. But her brother came in and asked me about it. Within a week, he had turned in the survey, the numbers, and said, hey, here's our mission statement. So, yeah, that one happened pretty quickly. And then I think in their first meeting, they had like 28 kids show up for chess club. So, yeah, if there's interest, we'll do it. Yeah, so I don't know if everybody can hear that, but 40 kids at chess club last week. So, yeah, not the group I'm going to hang out with because I just know that I have no idea how to play chess. And, yeah. Okay, then high school boys, 83 participated in clubs. And again, if I'm comparing to last year, that number's similar, but with the larger increase, that percentage has grown somewhat too.
Mike, is this club athletics as well, or no?
Well, yes,
Yes,
a little
okay.
bit of both, yep.
Okay,
So we
little bit of
grouped them
both.
together, non-athletic and
Got
athletic
it.
together.
Okay.
Yep.
And is it the CTSOs too, Mike, or not?
Yeah, some of them. I don't want to lump them all together
Yeah.
because some of them we haven't, we don't have numbers on officially. Like we have some clubs that are going to be just this spring, so those numbers aren't included in here. This would just be through the fall and through the winter. And then just to give you an idea of activity passes sold. So total passes sold this year were 929, and 691 of them, or about 70, a little over 74%, were students, and then adults were 238. And our focus has really been trying to get students involved, get them in attendance. We create a student incentive program, and that's gone well, and we think that's enhanced our numbers. So just by comparison, last year we sold 570 student activity passes, so we're over 100 more. Some of that is the increase in enrollment, but some of it's just, hey, do you know if you go to games, you get free stuff, and you go to activities, you get free stuff. So if we can keep selling that, we think that's a big plus.
And that's high school students or
Yes.
all across?
No,
this
that would be
district-wide?
everybody, district-wide, yep. And then attendance. So through January 31st, this would be any fine art or any activity, any athletic event, 22,122 people attended, and you can see the breakdown, athletics 18,021, and arts or fine arts 4,101. And again, last year we had 19,000 through January 31st. So that's jumped quite a bit, and I know Brian likes that because he thinks that's going to come in terms of financial assistance. Is that right, Brian? Oh, here it is, total revenue, Brian. So total revenue thus far this year, 73,492. Athletics is 57,862, if I'm reading that correctly, and then 15,630. And again, just to compare, $61,700 in total revenue last year. And so that would be gate receipts or then activity passes as well. And just some cultural action items. I think one of the things that we've tried to really do is just create a culture that where students want to be involved, they feel like they're valued, they feel like they belong. But we've also tried to do that with raising expectations. You know, we want to have a real positive experience, but we also want to make sure we're challenging our students and student athletes to perform at a high level and to maximize their abilities. So I got tired of going to every individual activity meeting. In my first year, I think my fall semester, I went to 11 or 12 and gave the same presentation. So rather than continue to do that, I created these fall, winter, and spring activities rallies. And I'm not innovative. Everybody else is doing it, but we invite everybody. If you want to be in a fall activity, you and a parent or guardian can come, and then we break out into our individual meetings. So I go over new policies and share to make sure they know what you have to have turned in terms of paperwork, and then we break out so that they know what their coach, director, advisor expects. Attendance checks. We had a lot of issues with attendance, especially in the fall of last year, where kids would be unexcused absence and then they'd show up for practice. And you can't practice when you have an unexcused absence. So about middle of the fall of last year, we started mandating that our coaches, directors, advisors take attendance. And then now this year, we've really, I think, fine-tuned it where they can go right into campus and they can pull up their roster and look, and they don't have to search for everybody, it just lists who has an unexcused absence. If it's green, like it could be a parental request, it's excused, no issues there. It's just the red ones. And I, again, trying to change culture and get the idea across that, you know, you're either committed and you're following the rules and policies, or it isn't going to work. And we've had some success improving that area. We also changed our academic eligibility grade checks. We used to just check for academic eligibility at the end of each semester, and then if you earned 2 credits or passed usually 4 courses, you were eligible for the entirety of the next semester. Now we do grade checks at midterm of each quarter, the end of each quarter, midterm of the second quarter, end of the semester. And I know Dr. Von Fischer's sitting behind me, but I can't remember exactly how he said it, but when we did semester grade checks, he said, ooh, this is about as few ineligible students as we've had in quite some time. So 2 things. One, I think being proactive helped minimize the number of students that we lost for a semester. But 2, I think it's a credit to our kids buying in and saying, you know what, if they're going to look after me and show interest in me, I'm going to invest in it too. Homecoming parade, I get more comments and compliments on that. I don't know if you remember, I said, hey, if we could get 10 entries that first year, and we had 52, and I think we had 74 this year. So it's a big hit. I tell everybody that the Homecoming Parade Committee meets every morning at 8 a.m. in my office. It's me, if anybody ever wants to join. I do have our Monogram Club that helps with that once we get into the school year, but yeah, it's turned into a pretty good event. Student Incentive Program I talked about, we award points for high school kids attending student activities, and then they can earn anything from t-shirts to gift cards to hoodies, and I think that's been a big plus. When they stop down and Tammy hands out, hey, you've earned enough points, you get a hoodie, you know, their reactions, really? I just get this free? Yep. And we have a sponsor for that. Century 21 is a sports marketing sponsor that money is designated to cover those costs. So it's been a good relationship. Girls and Women in Sports Recognition. This past February 1st was, I think, the 37th or 38th annual Girls and Women in Sport Day. And so we recognize 16 young ladies, and I think that's really important. I think having a wife who was in sports, having 2 daughters that are in sports, and then understanding the history and the challenges that females have had to work through in order to get where we're at today. I think it's makes sense to just recognize young ladies that are committed to it. New one, mental performance training for staff. So we hired Chris Crack to come in, and Chris is the mental performance coach for SDSU, and I got to know him a little bit before I left SDSU, and then just met with him this summer. Here's what I'd like. I'd like you to do some sessions with our coaches, directors, advisors. It was open to assistants, heads, anybody, and go through some mental performance skills training, and that they can then take those skills and apply it to their programs. And so he did 7 45-minute sessions for us, and then we're going to set up some Zooms that our coaches or staff can now call him and ask questions. Hey, this is going well, what do I do here? It's like strength training. We spend all this time lifting weights and conditioning, but what are we doing to teach our young people how to handle adversity, how to work through, mental hurdles? Ooh, I always feel like I cramp up when I got to shoot a free throw late in the game, or I'm the kicker and my groin gets tight every time I got to kick an extra point when it's close. Well, there are skills that we can provide our young people to help push through that, and it's starting. Our vision for the summer is to create a camp for both now athletes to come to that Chris runs, and parents. So parents get it too. Because even though I might have coached for a long time, I made a lot of mistakes as a parent when my kids came home and the way that I maybe handled certain situations. So if we can educate our parents on those things too, I think that's a big positive. We added a program and event coordinator, and Kylie Kramer has done that for us and has been fabulous. She's essentially in charge of middle school activities, and what that has allowed me to do, I looked at my last year's presentation, I said, hey, I don't have enough time to be hands-on and provide as much feedback to our high school staff as I would like to. This allows me more time to go observe practices, meet with coaches, advisors, directors. And Kylie's been so good that after a couple meetings, she's just run with it. So she's been a blessing and a much appreciated addition for the program. And then core values, we met last year. We had our monogram club, and then we had staff meet, and these are the core values that we agreed upon. So, the acronym is TEAM, but it's integrity, effort, accountability, and community. And then we have descriptors for each of those. What we're starting now, and it sometimes when you're driving, you know how thoughts just pop in your head? I'm like, we need to promote this more. And so over the holiday break, it came to me that we need to award or recognize those students who are embodying our core values on a monthly basis. And so now, starting in February, that's what we're going to do. I've asked staff that are in season to recognize somebody who's displaying or maybe exhibiting one or more than one of those core values, and I want them to take pictures with them. I want to be in my board packet. I want all that. I want it to be important, not something that we just, Jude said we have to do this, so let's jump through it. So, any questions for me? Otherwise, honestly, that is all that I wanted to share with you.
Questions from the board?
I would
have
just,
one
oh,
question. I was going to
go
say,
ahead, Deb.
and I don't know that you'd know the answer to this, Mike, but I know that one of the things that we know is beneficial is if a student has a connection to the school through involvement in an extracurricular activity. Do we have any idea of what percentage of our student body at the high school is involved in some type of activity?
Yep. So I would say that about 26% of our high school student body is in a sport, is in athletics. And I would say 67, 68% are in a fine art. Those numbers that I shared with you, they might be disproportionate because, I'm in a fine art, if I'm in more than one activity, we're counting that more than once. But as a general rule, fine arts is usually that's 2/3 of our student population, and then athletics is 27, 28%. Some of that will change this spring because we're adding softball. And so, though that will increase our numbers, that'll go from club to a sanctioned sport. As we continue to increase clubs, that, if there's student interest. It isn't official yet, but, there's talk that the state's going to add esports. So where do we sit? As a conference, the ESD, Harrisburg has esports, but it's all voluntary. Their advisor volunteers. He did all the fundraising for the equipment necessary. And as a conference, we've essentially committed to remaining out of esports until it's sanctioned. And then I think, we got to make a decision as a district. Are we in as a district? And I think we did a survey last year. There's interest in esports, middle school and high school. And I'd rather have us have our student body participating under the supervision of an advisor than at home at 4:30 playing somebody in who knows where, that who knows how old they are. And I think there's value in that. They can still have the fun and entertainment that comes with esports, but also I think it's a little safer.
Mike, when you mention the percent in activities and fine arts, does that include the club programs as well?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
So I would say fine arts clubs together, that's 66, 67%.
Thank you for that.
You bet.
I might add that this is not getting unnoticed by our patrons in the district. Parents who have had a child in a certain sport, they know when that participation increases, and actually they've come up to me and shared that with me, activities, but you know which ones they are. And this is positive, and it kind of spreads the goodwill of a certain activity or multiple activities, that this is okay to be involved. And so I want to acknowledge that here. We don't get very many chances to acknowledge that, but the public is aware.
Yeah, no, I
If
appreciate
not,
it.
they're gonna
I
be
get quite a
after
few
tonight.
feedback, quite a bit of feedback, and honestly, 99% of it's positive. I remember taking an education class that the professor said, hey, you do realize that 99% of your time is going to be spent on 1% of your student body. And in this position, I would say 99% of what I receive is positive, 1%, and it's usually the same 1%, but you know that in a leadership position. And so I'm hoping that we're moving in the right direction. We're changing our culture, we're changing the way we talk about it, how we feel about it. And I think if we can continue to establish that foundation, then more success will follow. And I should highlight, and I have to highlight, and then I'll end on this. State One Act rocked it been February 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. We performed on the 4th, but I'm going to read, okay, so we had a Technical Theater Award for Costume Design, we had Outstanding Activity Ensemble Awards, Outstanding Actor Awards, Technical Theater Awards, and our play received a superior rating. So all that, and Laura and Julie have done an incredible job. I'm going to be off a little bit. I think we had 12 in one act last year and 40 this year. So that really increased. And then state gymnastics this past Friday and Saturday had a great weekend in Aberdeen. Finished 6th overall as a team. And I think if you don't know gymnastics, O'Gorman, Harrisburg, Mitchell, those are the top 3 in AA. And it's all because they're club kids who do it year-round, then take club season off and come and do high school gymnastics. And so there are some elite athletes. We finished 8th year before, 6th this year. And then Layla Erickson, who's just a freshman, finished 7th overall in the individual. And Delilah Fools, who's a junior, finished 11th. So both of those two return. Coach E and her staff have done a wonderful job. So I think it just reiterates that we're doing some good things. We just got to keep pounding the stone, as they say.
Learners or students have to see an end value.
Yeah, and we have to make them feel valued. And when they feel valued, they want to be a part of it.
Feel value and see some end value. I
That's
guess it's
exactly.
the same sentence, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we need to, as a school board, get our act together and do something in the homecoming parade too. So I'll challenge our board members that next fall, we better be thinking about that.
Meeting adjourned. No, just kidding. That's fun.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Have that.
Mike, do you want to introduce our next guests then as part of your extension of your presentation?
I will introduce Abby Page, and she can come and introduce
Great.
all the students. So she was up here before, but Abby Page is going to provide the lead for FCCLA's presentation.
Great. Thank you.
Well, that was great. Yeah, so I'm Abby Page, and I'm here today with 4 awesome student leaders representing our freshman chapter, our senior chapter, and we also have some state representative here too. So I'll let you guys come on up and you can introduce yourselves.
Boom. Glad you ladies are here. Thank you for coming. And grab more chairs right behind you. We want you all up there.
And when you speak, as I was trying to do, make certain that the green button is on, which it is right now, and that you speak closely to the microphone so that we can hear you clearly.
I got it. You are smart.
Problem solvers.
They don't use our ancient technology here. That's what they are saying. You get it? Yep, that's good up there. Thank you.
So, good evening. We wanted to thank you for allowing us to come and speak today. We'll begin by introducing ourselves.
I'm Olivia Mulhair, and I'm in the senior chapter.
I'm Emily Hua. I serve as the FCCLA State President.
I'm Jenny York. I am also a part of the senior chapter. I am here in place of Kate because he is sick today.
I'm Olivia Hove, and I'm part of the freshman chapter.
And we are accompanied by our lovely advisor, Miss Abby Page. She's one of our two advisors. Our other advisor is the lovely Megan Jaquit. So this week is FCCLA week that takes place from February 13th to February 17th. So in honor of that, we're here to advocate for the family, career, and community leaders of America. And we want to specifically talk about the success that the Brookings FCCLA chapters have had since you've last saw us last year.
This year, the Brookings chapter has had a great success on the state and national level. At the 2022 South Dakota FCCLA State Leadership Conference, members had success competing in various star events for advancing to the national level. And our very own Emily Hua was elected to serve as the 2022-2023 state president.
We also had members attend the National Leadership Conference in San Diego, where South Dakota was one of the top performing states, and Brookings High School received second place in the Knowledge Bowl competition. We also had Capitol Leadership in Washington, D.C., where we had the opportunity to speak to representatives of our state legislators and learn more about our national government.
Our most recent meeting was the Region 4 meeting that was held right here in Brookings, where other chapters from Region 4 came together. Our very own junior, Kay Christensen, was elected as the 2022-2023 Region 4 Vice President.
The Brookings FCCLA chapter remains committed to bettering our schools and the Brookings community. We have partnered and volunteered with the Brookings Area Chamber for various events, like Downtown at Sundown. We've participated in the cleanup of the SDSU football stadium that we use for our football events, which usually are some long nights. And we also volunteered at the Share the Warmth, and the FCCLA also partnered with the Educators Rising chapter in holding a carnival, a little Halloween carnival by the track.
FCCLA has plans to work collaboratively with two other student-led organizations at BHS to put on a career fair March 8th, where BHS students can explore career opportunities. We are also planning on having a mini and me prom, which would be our second year of doing that, which was a success last year. And this will take place in late April for all elementary students to attend and have a fun night with their family and friends. So stay tuned for both of those events.
So yeah, that is all we have for you today. On behalf of the Brookings FCCLA chapters, we'd like to thank you for always remaining strong supporters of not only FCCLA, but other student-led organizations throughout our district. So thank you. We greatly appreciate having such an encouraging school board to career and technical education and for family and consumer sciences education. So we look forward to another great year. And again, thank you for having us to speak to you today.
Thank you.
Before we go, it's kind of our annual tradition to give you guys some gifts.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Do board members have any questions or comments?
I would just say that was just extremely impressive, and I thank you for all your hard work and efforts. I know it takes a lot of your time and extra energy, so I just appreciate that you represent Brookings so well at all of your FCCLA events. Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, I have to say something.
Thank you.
Career and technical
Thank you,
education is my background, and family consumer sciences education is my background. So I've been a lifelong involvement with FCCLA, and so I was lucky enough to be in San Diego with all of you, and then also at the District 4 meeting, and I was just so proud of all of the work that you have done, and Emily, you did such a great job leading that meeting, and I look forward to seeing all of you at the state meeting, and I know that Brookings will do very well there too as well. And I think this is a great example of how the career and technical student organizations, all of them, help to develop the leadership skills of our students at BHS across the state and across the country.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we are going to move on, board members, to our communication and discussion items, which starts with board communications. First, is the Performance Oversight Committee.
Yes, we met last Tuesday, and it was a Zoom, several persons from Brookings representing the middle school and the high school, and we met Zoom with Casey, who's done our strategic plan, and Jennifer Lowry, the T superintendent, and also a man named Michael Burton. And so really what the presentation was about is how we, next step, operationalize the strategic plan. How do we get the strategic plan out of the folder? And out of the folder and actually doing it. And I know Casey will be sharing that, presenting that to the board February 27th when we meet. And so a lot of really good ideas, because I think we all kind of get stuck with a strategic plan, and then how do we do it, break it down, and she really talked great about marrying culture and strategy. So it was very well presented and very exciting to kind of hear from next steps. And Jennifer from T has engaged in this, and so how they've been doing and what's worked, and she was really encouraging. And so I look forward to Casey sharing all of this with us on the 27th.
Thank you. All right, the Facilities and Construction Committee. I wrote down some notes, but do you want to go, Wes, and then I'll...
You go, I got my finance notes.
Oh, he has finance notes. Okay, I'm doing that. And just so everyone knows, Piers from Houseman is here, and so he's not doing a presentation, but if we have any questions over some of the things later, or even now, that would be acceptable to ask. But we kind of continue our weekly, bi-weekly meetings with our architect and our construction manager, working, and then those groups are obviously working on a lot of things one-on-one with other groups, stopping in at Hillcrest and Madera, a lot of work on with teachers and individuals in the schools. I know the principals have been really involved with that, and so that work just continues, continuing to be on that same time frame and timeline that we have. We haven't heard that we are slowing down. I know Shannon at Hillcrest, and I'm unsure about Chris at Madera, have plans to present those plans to their PTAs this week, just to get some feedback from that. And then we'll work on neighborhood meetings. So just for the public's awareness that those neighborhood meetings will be upcoming probably sometime in March. And we're working hard on safety of site and safety after build. There's a lot of our conversations recently about that fence that we'll see going up, construction fences probably in April. And so that will be very real to people, and just how that all looks throughout the time. And I know the Finance Committee and the Facilities Committee continue a lot of collaboration and interaction as we continue to work on that. So I don't know if, Wes, you have additional things to add, or if Pierce, you have anything to add. I'm happy to take that.
I'd like to add, I sat in on the last two facilities committee meetings, and our community should be very confident that we have exceptional people working on this, from the architects to the construction team, to the principals who bring input from the schools. And I was just very impressed with all the details and all the specifics, thinking ahead, strategizing to create these educational environments to enhance our learners. So I was very impressed and want our community to feel very confident. And I'm going to ask two things of the community. Number one, if you hear about a meeting presenting this, I encourage you to go. And then the second thing is just to pray for and send positive vibes that we have excellent weather in the next years, that we can get this project up and running and completed on time. So that's all I
Thank you.
want to add.
Yeah, and just so the public knows, if there's a board member that can't attend a lot of our subcommittee meetings, we do fill in for each other here and there, and so we just all kind of stay on top of all the work going on in our subcommittees too. Thanks, Teresa.
So without belaboring the matter of safety, when I went to Alice event at Camelot, excuse me, safety came up, of course, in the new schools, and Teresa was there that day, and we were able to respond that we had discussions almost the entire January 6th, I think it was a Friday the 6th, facilities meeting was
All about safety.
safety was the agenda. And of course, one of the takeaway messages, fire safety is not safety relative to other settings. And so, and I think our safety is not only, children being dropped off, picked up, bus safety, transportation safety, whatever, but it includes a lot of other things that our public knows that are an issue in our schools.
Thank you. Moving on to the Policy and Governance Committee.
I don't have my notes with that, but we do have some second readings tonight and first readings that we went through. Many of them were changes because the state laws changed, and so therefore our policies needed to change. There are a couple that we're still holding off on since there are some bills out in the legislature regarding students from alternative education programs participating in sports. So we have a couple that we were going to second read tonight and approve, but they are on hold till after those bills get through. Deb, do you have some stuff to add?
Well, just that our next set of policies is going to deal with personnel. So we're kind of wrapping up the ones with the students, and now we'll be heading into personnel. So we are moving right along, and eventually we will have gotten through all of them, and we'll start over, so.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on to the School Finance Committee.
My colleague Teresa Binkley has joined me and the school manager and superintendent Willard on in some meetings very recently. We're focusing on trying to get some data and budget numbers for our planning for next fiscal year 23-24, relative to staff salaries, utilities, other budget issues. And we're trying to inventory our salary data and what this percent would mean or that percent would mean, so we are prepared. And just for a point of reference, that our budget is really based on some real numbers, the numbers of our learners and the numbers that the state legislature comes up with for our budget increase. Our budget increase isn't just state funds, it is local tax revenues that enter into it, and the effort that that our taxpayers have in terms of the resources that we have. And so then we've turned to our budget, to a bond issue, and what we have there for our resources for our Metairie and Hillcrest projects. We're trying to get our arms around that, and have had a really good meetings to try to identify what we need to do to our financing options for the remainder of our commitment for our two facilities. Without going into a lot of detail, but I'll just say that we are on track. We had an extra meeting today. We had one late last week with to get advice from our experts relative to our bonding ability and interest rates. Interest rates have actually gone down. For us, I would call that an improvement since October, November, and which is nice for getting this thing done and getting the financing. Thank you.
I
Teresa, might you have a
would just
comment?
add, I feel like we're in a little bit of a holding pattern because we're waiting for all the proposals for our additional funding for the schools and to see where they can come in so we can be wise and choose the best plan there. We're also waiting for the numbers to come in from the state and what our increase will be. And we're also waiting for numbers from Pierce and to see what our maximum proposal will finally be. So we've been meeting a lot and have a lot of things in the pot, but we just need those final numbers to get things back to the rest of you so we can make the decisions.
All right, Mental Health Coalition.
There are just a lot of things going on related to mental health here in Brookings. Last week, Kelly and I both attended a brain architecture session that was held at Ascension Lutheran Church, and that is related to the ACEs training, the Adverse Childhood Experiences. And I would encourage any of you, those are offered on a basis in the community every so often. They'll have the same events, and it's just such a great opportunity. We learned so much about how those adverse childhood experiences impact the brain, and we were building a brain out of straws and pipe cleaners, and ours started out with a really nice base, and then there's all kinds of things that happened to our child that really limited the growth of their brain and the stability. So it really was a good visual impact of what those kinds of things do. And then coming up next Monday, the 20th, from 8 to 1 at the Swiftel, there is an event called Stronger Together, Building Assets for Brookings, and that's related to suicide prevention. And I'm planning to attend that one. If you're interested in attending, anyone can go to the United Way calendar, and there's a spot there where you can register. And I would encourage, again, others to consider doing that if you could do that on Monday. That United Way calendar is a great place to look for all of the kinds of things that are going on in Brookings related to mental health, resiliency, inclusiveness for our youth. So those are just a couple of things.
To add to the brain architecture experience, that our pre-K-5 curriculum director was also in attendance, so I thought that was really wonderful and could be a great thing for our staff to go through. But for me, it just reaffirms the commitment that we have to younger children in our community, and that we need all of Brookings and our school board to come around that, because when those pathways aren't built from birth to 5, those effects affect all of our children and all of our schools. And it was a really good experience, but just another reminder of the commitment that we need to all have to that age demographic. Personal opinion there. All right, general board member communications.
I just want to, again, encourage everyone to go to the Department of Education website. Take a look at the content standards that are being proposed for social studies. There is still one more hearing, April 11th in Pierre. We need parents to speak out. You can speak out by just responding on the website. You don't have to be there in person. They have made some changes, and they've improved the area of geography. They did some things to really strengthen the geography standards, but in terms of the other social studies standards, the struggle is they're not developmentally appropriate, and they also identify specific teaching strategies that the teacher is supposed to do, and that's really not the purpose of a standard. The teacher determines how they're going to teach that standard. So there's just a lot of things. The process was not followed very carefully. So I just encourage parents and community members, take a look at those and really give them serious consideration, because once they're in place, they will be in place for 5 years before they'll review it again. So we really need to have a lot of people speaking out. And I also am encouraging our board to consider at our next meeting that we take a stand and say we are opposed to these. Many school boards across the state are doing that, and I would love to see us do that as well.
I agree with that. Yep.
All right, we are moving on into our 7 Section B administrative reports. And the first one, the superintendent will share information about the past month or upcoming topics for future consideration.
All right, board members, and I'll go relatively quickly through the items. As you know, I always stand ready for questions at the end, but the calendar committee has met. We're gathering some more data and input from staff, and you'll notice later on in the report, there's a couple of references to some of the information that we have been collecting regarding some of the makeup times. The data that you'll see later on in the reports reflects specifically to make up a professional development, staff development day that was scheduled on the calendar that we missed due to weather implications. So again, we're working through some plans and certainly taking into account as we develop a calendar for the next couple of years. We have the one that's in place, but we're reviewing that. But then the following year, the 23-24, 24-25 school year, as we contemplate that start time, taking into consideration certainly the implications of our construction projects, because we know that that's going to be a big factor that we want to be mindful of. You'll see that there is some information that's attached related to the ongoing efforts and work related to competency-based education. There's a continued effort as we're working on our playbook and the teamwork that we're doing around the playbook. There'll be an administrative team meeting to review that, and then also developing a staff group that will serve as an advisory committee as we keep moving this forward and working through the details. And then I know that in a short while, the colloquium group will have the opportunity to reconvene again and continue to refine some of that work as well. So just a quick update there. You'll see the strategic plan. There's an overview. There's a graphic that was created by a former Brookings alumni that's embedded in my report. You can see that's identifying the 4 proposed pillars for our strategic plan. And then beyond that, you can see we've attached the plan documents itself, and that's what Casey is going to go into a great deal of detail with when she's here. So I would encourage you, if you haven't had the chance to do so, review a lot of that information. It gives a great deal of background and information on the processes and approaches that we utilize to get to the point that we are at. And as has already been said, Dr. DeBates' statement about social studies standards, I would echo a support of recommending that we would take a stand in opposition of the proposed standards as they stand. The Associated School Boards of South Dakota has put together a resolution. I think through the communications that ASBSD has shared, there is a consistent and increasing number of school districts that are standing in opposition. So I do envision we'll have further conversation and an opportunity to discuss that as well. And again, that April 11th date in Pierre, it's imperative people attend. Parents, it's really important that you're there. And again, go take a look at the website from the Department of Education, and you'll have an opportunity to actually see what those standards call upon our learners to do. And I know I've been asked the question, well, are these tested? Are they really a high priority? These are the standards that we are held to account for when it comes to accreditation. So we will be accountable for implementing those and obtaining and being certain that our curriculum that we adopt is consistent with the standards as well. So there's a lot of work that goes into these, so it's important that voices are heard. Some things from the high school, you can see a few different things related to the family-friendly walkthrough process that was recently completed. In that process of gathering some feedback, again, that's something that all of our schools are working through, and that's part of our colloquium work, ensuring that our schools are family-friendly. And going back to previous comments during the board feedback about our building project, we have shared our building plans with the Family Engagement Center and received very positive feedback as well on the proposed plans from them about ensuring our buildings are family-friendly and engaging atmospheres and environments. Safety updates. We know that we once again received a spoofing call and one of those swatting calls. Our team responded incredibly well. We're quick to respond. I want to thank the Brookings Police Department for their quick and timely response as well. And we will continue to take these situations very seriously. And each one of those we are utilizing not only as an opportunity to address the situation, but also through a feedback loop process, engaging staff, as well as the Brookings PD, asking ourselves what went well, what could we do better, and then making refinements accordingly. So again, while those are disruptive, we are trying to make the most of each and every one of those situations to learn and grow as an organization. You can see some other things related to the CT month. Again, I don't want to take any more time to discuss that, and we just want to celebrate CT with all of our learners and all of our staff that contribute so much in those important areas. And by the way, Dr. Debates, we did notice you wore red tonight. So, Quiz Bowl and spelling bee and academic competitions and writing competitions are all areas of celebration that are noted in the middle school report. We know our learners there have been doing a great deal of work related to some of those co-curricular, extracurricular club activities, if you will. So again, congratulations to all of them. As we look to the Camelot report, you can see that they're continuing their work related to the comprehensive needs assessment process, and they've been doing a much deeper dive into some of the school data that has really surfaced, looking at some different things in curriculum and instruction, how we're capitalizing and maximizing instructional time. That's one of the areas that they're talking about, looking at some culture, climate things as well. Understanding that there are some opportunities for improvement based upon some of that feedback. You'll notice that they're utilizing a great deal of the NWA measures of academic progress data, some other observation of learners, curriculum review, all those things to really help tighten up their plan of action as they go forward. And it's really about how do we continue to grow and improve on the educational experiences for learners at Camelot. And then again, you can see an example of some CBE practices at work. If you look at the report, and you'll notice some different ways that that was highlighted by some staff members there in Camelot. So again, just some examples noting how some of those things are in progress going on in the district. Screening for kindergarten is something that's highlighted in all of the elementary administrative reports. Those dates, March 27th, 28th, and 29th, those are moved up a little bit, and the goal was to have a better understanding of what our enrollment numbers will be as we project what ultimately we'll do with our general fund budget as the legislative session closes down. So again, you'll notice that highlighted in all the reports. You'll notice the reference to Rizzo, and that is the comfort dog that we have in the school here, and it has been so well received. And it's just a really neat experience that this building is able to capitalize on. And again, something that I was excited to support when asked the question. And then again, you'll see some references to working with our NWA data and our results. The report from Hillcrest, highlighting how they are celebrating positive behaviors, utilizing school-wide bingo. And all the elementary schools, I believe, took a shape in celebrating away of the winter blahs. And they had a little Hawaiian dance over at Hillcrest, and I think Kelly, you might have had a little hand in doing something with that. So those that may be interested, there is your party planner right there. Moving right along, Maderi School, you can see a few different things to reference there. One that I would really like to point to, again, it shows the generosity of our community and the community in which we live. 25 Strider bikes and helmets being donated to support the physical education curriculum by 3M and Malarkey Roofing was something that was really appreciated. And again, we're really thankful for the level of generosity and support. And then this week, of course, during Valentine's Day, was National Kindness Week, February 13th through the 17th. And there's doing some PBIS celebrations around that. And then kind of a neat project, if you happen to take advantage of some of the opportunities that you noticed in the different reports about visitation times. They have the Leave Your Mark painting ceiling tiles in the school. And if you've been in the school, you see that happening. It's really a neat opportunity, and the kids really are having a lot of fun with that. Looking at the PK5 Director of Curriculum Instruction report, you'll notice this is the data that I was talking about when we asked the question, what would you prefer in terms of making up the date? We offered March 17th, April 6th, or end of the year, obviously contingent upon when that is. And the greater majority of our staff supported the end of the year. So we are planning that accordingly. And just know that the next calendar revision that we'll bring to the board, which will occur in March, which is our typical cadence, it will reflect some of those factors as well. And then an opportunity to celebrate Dr. Vandeweerd. She is finalizing her year of being recognized as the outstanding curriculum director for the state of South Dakota this year. So again, we had an opportunity, several of us, to participate in a celebration of her contributions out in Pierre at the Outstanding Administrators Banquet, and Tana certainly was among those. The state assessment process, as you see referenced in the 612 curriculum instruction report, as well as the special programs report, those things are underway and starting. And then something that's really important, I think, going back to some of the discussion that we had about building in inherent accountability factors and measures of progress and success, we are participating in the South Dakota Department of Education results-driven accountability process within our special education department. And Heather Asmussen, our Director of Special Services, is participating in that process. So it's something that is helping guide and improve what we're doing, and certainly will give us positive feedback on some opportunities to make some marked improvements in our special education services. We know that that has been a real challenge because of staffing shortages and the like. Moving forward into the Director of Activities report, I don't know if too much more needs to be said. We had an outstanding presentation. Just would point to those opportunities where our student athletes have an opportunity to go on and play sports and participate in activities beyond Brookings. And you can see we have some that are going to University of Minnesota, Minnesota State University Moorhead, We have some going to play softball, running, playing volleyball. So we have a host of Bobcat athletes that have that opportunity. Again, you can find that directed into the board report. In the Director of Child Nutrition report, I would like to point to the fact that we are receiving an allocation of funding, and it's related to supply chain assistance. In April 2022, we received the initial round of funding, and then in April of 23, we will be receiving additional funds of $79,000, just about $80,000, and it's really to support purchasing unprocessed or minimally processed foods that are domestic and used for school breakfast and lunch meals. So it just helps augment some of the work that's going on in our child nutrition programs. Director of Instructional Technology report, just point to E-rate as one of those factors that we're going through. We're going to be utilizing those funds to purchase wireless access points and controllers, doing some upgrading here at Dakota Prairie relative to some of the services that we have. And the nice thing about E-rate, it gives us a 50% discount on the purchase and acquisition of that equipment that supports our learners and what they do with technology applications in their classrooms. Director of Transportation, you'll notice that we have been given the opportunity to put AED units and CPR kits at the bus garage. There's been an effort to do some training and support around those things. So we're working on getting drivers CPR certified. That's really exciting, and I applaud Nate's effort in that work. And then you'll notice that we have had a couple of issues with some buses, and again, we've been working through those. We had some gelled up motors, we had a couple of breakdowns in heating systems, but again, we've really had a great effort on behalf of our transportation team and our fleet to make certain that our learners are taken care of despite those setbacks that we've had with transportation. With our Director of Business Services report, you'll notice that there's also an attached report from the School and Public Lands report. So again, that's just something for your point of reference as you think about the management of those dollars and how that impacts what happens to us as a district. And we know that it's important to recognize that later on this month, the filings for school board elections close. So you can find all that information, contact the district office if you're interested. And also there's some information that we're waiting patiently for, which obviously will come at the end of the legislative session, and that's our state aid, and we've talked about that already. I think a couple of you attended with me the legislative coffee, and it was encouraging to hear nearly every single legislator, I think maybe except for one, that made the statement, we need to do better than 5%. And I applaud that enthusiasm because again, I think many of them recognize that if we are only at 5%, it sets us back just with inflation alone. So we're going to continue to advocate, and I feel very confident that those that are representing District 7 and District 8, which is predominantly our district, they're strong advocates for that right now at the state level. So I do stand ready for any questions, board members, that you might have. I was trying to move quickly just because, again, we know we have some other presentations this evening.
I just have a comment. I want to thank all the administrators and the directors for their additional upcoming events. I sat with my calendar and found a couple things every week that I can attend in our district, and that just makes it really easy for me to find out where I want to go. So I really appreciated having that added to those reports.
And I would like to just make a comment. I think now we've probably all attended the ALICE training, so I think that's a real plus too for our board, that we've all gone to one of those trainings to find out more about the school safety and how we're handling that in our district. And what Clint said about the state aid, I did get a notice from someone from the legislature said they're not hearing enough from schools and school board members. So I right away sent something to ours, which I think do support it, but pass that word along. They want to hear more that these increases are really necessary and vital to our school districts.
All right, we're moving on to our other communications and discussion items. And so our policy committee, thank you so much. Our policy section, so we have 5 policies tonight in the first reading and 5 policies in the second reading. And so I will just let the policy committee jump in. Otherwise, I'll keep kind of going through unless you have things to add. So we're on the first reading of our revisions made to policy JEA, compulsory attendance ages. Go ahead.
I would just say for most of these, it was, they were due to some law bills that changed at the state legislature. So these were sent to us by the Associated School Boards to be sure that we had our policies in line with those bills, with those laws. They had been reviewed recently, but because of the changes in the law, we have to update
Go
them.
back.
So the language is from Associated School Boards.
All right, 7.23, we have our first reading of revisions being made to policy JFCL, learner registered sex offender. 7.24, we have our first reading of revisions being made to policy JFG, interrogations and searches. 7.25, we have our first reading of revisions being made to JFGA, law enforcement and Department of Social Services learner interview policy. We have our first reading, 7.26, our first reading of revisions being made to policy KD, public participation at board meetings.
I'm just going to.
Yep, I was going to comment on that too.
Actually, for the, both the interrogations and the law enforcement interviews and policies, we just need to be sure that parents are aware of those and students are aware of those policies and I believe, and where to find them, because that would, being proactive on that, I think would be beneficial for everyone concerned to know what could happen or when it could happen and those kinds of things. And then I think on public participation at board meetings, we have updated that, but we might still be waiting for some other things that are in the works.
What I've heard is that there's some legislation relating to this, so we may have to wait until
Okay.
the end of session to know if our policy is in accordance with the law. So just keep an eye on that. And if you have specific things you want to share with your legislators regarding that, another opportunity to email.
Yeah, the only comment I had on that is just as we're writing, just looking at some of the order of agenda and time frame things, just making sure that we're not holding, just making sure boards in the future can do what they need to do in those sessions, that we don't have too much in the policy that doesn't allow for a little bit of leeway when a president is presiding over a meeting. So I can email some of those items. All right, moving on to our second readings, and that is the second reading, 7.27, the second reading of revisions being made to policy JHFB, Student Safety Patrol. And that's an elimination of a policy.
Yeah. Basically, we don't
have
in
that.
anymore. Yeah.
All right, 7.28 is the second reading of revisions being made to policy JJD, fundraising and fund management.
And I think Mike did help us go through how those activities groups go about that, and so we did have input from activities as well on that.
7.29, the second reading of revisions being made to policy JNA, the loaning of textbooks. And then 7.30, the second reading of revisions being made to policy JO, student records. And 7.31, the second reading of revisions being made to policy JOA, student recruitment.
I'll just reiterate on that. We're not recruiting athletes or anything.
Correct.
It's just to meet the, and be in compliance with all the policies that say the colleges and military that can have access to that information.
All right, thank you, everyone, on the policy work. All right, moving on to item 8, which is the consent agenda. And so I'm looking for a motion.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved by Deb and seconded by Terry. Brian, we're ready for that vote. Great, and the motion passes. All right, moving on to our action items and our new and unfinished business. And our first item tonight is approval of the naming of the Bob Josted Gymnasium Press Box, the Dallas DC Cole Press Box, in honor of Dallas Cole. And so I don't know if I'm having Mike or Clint make some comments. I know board members had a chance to review, and we have some family members here tonight, and so we're really excited to take action on this item.
Well, I'll start by making some comments, and if it pleases the board, we'll go a little bit out of order here this evening without a first and a second motion, and just make some comments.
I was too happy and wanted to smile too much about doing
yeah.
it. So sorry, yeah, I'm not following my.
That's okay.
So I make the motion to approve this. Can I get a second?
And I will second that.
Okay,
All right.
everyone seconded.
Well, first of all, we're glad you're here this evening. Welcome. And we know, and I made the acknowledgement this morning on my Monday memo, what an incredible contribution Dallas made as the voice of the Bobcats for so many years. So when Mike Jewett presented this idea to me, I was absolutely on board and supported it, and we went through the process to get where we are, board members, and you all submitted names, and those names were handed over to Mike, and Mike led a process with those various representatives and voices of our broader community. And then, as I understand it, also interacted with the family and ultimately have before us this evening what I believe is a recommendation that I wholeheartedly support in naming the press box in honor of Dallas DC Cole at Bob Josted Gymnasium. It's a recognition that is certainly well-deserved, and I'm certain that Dallas is smiling down on us right now and claiming that he's still getting the last word as we go forward and make this recognition. So, Mike, I don't know if you want to talk about the process a little bit and share some of the other thoughts that you might have relative to this.
Well, you guys nominated, each of you nominated somebody for the review committee. We met as a committee. I had asked the committee to bring forward any letters of recommendation or thoughts, and some of them did formally. Others had thoughts. Others had even talked to community members, and there just wasn't, not surprisingly, there wasn't anybody who opposed naming this in honor of Dallas. I think that the days of having somebody that provides that much loyalty to one entity are over. And to think that Dallas did it so long and so well, where his name was synonymous with Bobcat activities and will continue to be. And I think that's the legacy we want to make sure that we honor, is that he did so much for all of us and the promotion of our students and community. His style, his professionalism are second to none. And so I personally want to make sure that when people come in to Bob Josted Gymnasium, that they see that press box is his press box, and that, as Margie said, it was his home away from home. And then I thought our committee spoke well when they said, we probably need to have something on the door leading up to the press box that would then provide a little bit of his bio. And so that's our intention. I also reached out to Brookings Radio, and although not formally, the term, the voice of the Bobcats, is retired. It will not be used or applicable to anybody else moving forward. And so we intend to have that on the plaque that honors his name. So, yeah, I just appreciate all those engaged in the process, and I appreciate the support from Dr. Willert and the board in getting this done.
Thank you.
If I may, for those that are at home
I
that
was
may.
just going to ask if one of us could read that. So
Yes,
thank you.
if I was going to go ahead and do that, because again, for those that are at home listening, or for posterity's sake as well, I'm going to skip over the first line and just state that Dulles' sustained and lasting contributions may never be equaled when considering that he was the voice of the Bobcats for nearly 40 years. His dedication to the Bobcats was unmatched, and the number of nights and weekends he spent chasing the Brookings teams around the state of South Dakota are too numerous to quantify. Long before the internet and live streaming, Dulles brought the games into people's homes and vehicles with a smoothness and professional touch few others could provide. He was an important figure in helping shape Bobcat activities from the 80s all the way through 2022. And although the number of broadcasts he provided diminished after his diagnosis, the history of all Bobcat activities and teams remained present because Dulles was there to share it with anyone willing to listen. While most know as the play-by-play man for the Bobcats, Dulles was vital to the school district in other ways. He interviewed debate coaches, choral directors, FFA advisors, etc., knowing the exact questions to ask to promote the activity or upcoming event. In addition, Dulles often called the activities office to share on-air all upcoming events, postponements, road conditions, and other vital information for Bobcat listeners. It's safe to say there may never be another Dulles Cole. He was a true professional, building relationships with Bobcat staff, students, and families over the years, while combining his two loves, broadcasting and the Bobcats. We do have attached some more information, board members, for you to read, but our committee, the committee that was led by Mike Jewett and his team, requests that the Bob Josted Gymnasium press box be named in honor of Dulles D.C. Cole throughout the Brookings School District to be utilized in the Bob Josted Gymnasium. So again, board members, it is with a great deal of admiration for all that he did that I support this recommendation, and obviously it's something that we will recognize at an upcoming event as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Mike, for a great idea. I think as a board member, this is the fastest I'll ever be going from inception of something to action.
Yes.
And get it done. And I appreciate the family being here tonight with us to do this.
I was just going to say thank you to the review committee, which was Lou Egerbrat and Mike Jewett, Alec Johnson, David Kuhlman, Keith Malem, and Dave Meyer. And thank you for Margie and Danielle for being here tonight. We're happy to do this. So Brian, we're ready for the vote. right, the motion passes. So, thank you. I want to shake hands. Unless you want, I mean, that's up to you. I'm always on the mic. We're going to move on to approval of donated items. I'm looking for a motion.
I move to approve the donated items.
Moved by Teresa, seconded by Wes. Tonight on that list of donations, thank you to those donors, 3M and Farmers Alliance Mutual Insurance for donations to the band, Fishback Financial for donations to student transportation, the Bobcat Backers for a donation to the BHS weight room, 3M for a donation to Hillcrest, and 3M and Malarkey Roofing, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, with the Strider Bikes donation to Maderi. So thank you. Wonderful donations totaling around $19,000. Brian, we're ready for the vote. All right, I'm looking for a motion. Oh, sorry. And passes. It was my fault. Is that okay, Brian? Okay, I clicked. Looking for a motion of approval of the 2023-2024 budget parameters.
Just to note that we discussed this probably not as long as much as we could have, because this is pretty much consistent with last year's budget parameters. But the Finance Committee did review these 3 weeks ago.
And I move to approve the budget parameters.
Second.
Discussion? Brian, we're ready for the vote. All right, motion passes. I'm looking for a motion of approval for the Eastern South Dakota Food Buying Group for the 2023-2024 school year membership agreement.
I so move.
I'll second. Moved by Deb, seconded by Kelly. Any discussion? Kelly was the second. All right, Brian, we're ready for the vote. Motion passes. I'm looking for a motion of approval of adding a varsity assistant track coach to the 2022-2023 master agreement extra duty schedule.
Or so move.
Second.
Moved by Terry, seconded by Wes. Any discussion?
Yes, is this position just for this spring season? It says,
Oh, maybe. I
it
thought we
says
were adding to the
2022 to
schedule.
2023?
Mike, if you would come forward and speak, I know that you and I have talked, but rather than doing this chain of telephone, we'll let you speak directly to it if you're willing.
So, no, I'm hoping it's permanent, that once it's added to the schedule, our track numbers continue to increase, and then we're behind in number of staffers compared to our
Correct.
peers in the ESD. And so, in particular, with this group, this person would be in charge of distance, middle distance to distance runners. We have an administrator that used to help with that, and now he's occupied with other things. But he did it on a voluntary basis. And I think that would be Chris Grunhagen, for those who don't know.
Correct.
And now that he's an administrator and becoming a parent again, he doesn't have time to do that, nor do we, I think, want to spread him too thin. So we're behind because of his willingness to
Volunteering.
do it and volunteerism, but we needed to move the program forward and to provide the type of experience and training that I think allows our athletes to have a wonderful experience.
I'm not questioning that we need to do it. I was just questioning when it says for the 2022-2023 master agreement, that if that to me was worded in a way like it was going to not be there.
And I
So
don't know the
know.
semantics of it all, but my understanding since I've been here, when we've added a position, that position stays.
So maybe we should just amend to be on the extra duty schedule overall, or?
I think we can leave it as it's stated, knowing that it'll be incorporated into the negotiated
Okay.
package when
Yep.
we get to that point.
Okay, that was my only question.
My support of it is adding it as a line in the extra duty schedule as an additional position.
And I have no problem supporting it, I just
Yeah,
wondered
yeah.
about
Nope,
the
I'm-
semantics.
That's good. All right. I can't remember who made the motions, I'm sorry. Okay, Terry and Wes, any other discussion? All right, Brian, we're ready for the vote. All right. I'm looking for a motion of approval of the amended language in the underwriting engagement and disclosure letter dated 12/10/21 from D.A. Davidson.
I move approval.
And second for discussion if people have it.
Second.
So moved by Deb, seconded by Kelly.
And just give a brief update.
That'd be great,
And,
Brian.
Teresa and Wes also sat in this one. Jerry went over it. But when their compliance department looked through our agreement signed in 2021, there was two things that they felt needed to be stricken out of it. And it was the two yellow bullet points in the letter attached. If you want, I can say what they were, but it's just, they request that those be removed out of our agreement and signed as an amendment. Pretty simple change of wording. I don't know if Wes or Teresa have anything to add.
Yeah, I guess I still don't really understand why that had the justification behind it. I understand it doesn't really change stuff, but I just didn't quite understand why it was.
And just going from their letter, they just said the wording's obsolete and their regulatory compliance department wishes to remove it. I feel they're pretty immaterial changes.
To me, I didn't know if it was something about, that's all the stuff we did before we passed the bond issue, and so now it's sort of obsolete because it's been done already or something? Didn't quite understand, but.
Could be also think there's a fine line between what they can and can't do for it. And if the wording and it says personally represent, I think they can represent us or help us
Oh, I see.
pass bonds, but they can't personally represent us.
Okay.
They'll assist us,
That-
analyze the project and alternatives. I think they can.
We're kind of past that. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought, but I just thought we should make that known to our colleagues here, board members.
Oh. And passes. All right, we're moving on to our sub-GMPs. We had shared with the board that you'll see this on the agendas, but this is 10.7, approval to establish the sub-guaranteed maximum price for site work, structural systems, mechanical, and electrical for the Maderi Elementary project with Hausman Construction and Clark Drew.
I move approval.
Second.
Moved by Wes and seconded by Terry. Any discussion or commentary?
I can just go over this briefly because I should say the price tag.
Yes,
And then
please.
Pierce, please add anything I missed. But the price tag for Maderi GM gross, or guaranteed maximum price, excuse me,
Yep.
is $19,913,933 $980. And as Kelly mentioned, it includes mechanical, electrical, structural, and site work. Did I miss anything, Pierce? Got it. All right, thank you.
Anyone have questions or?
And so that goes into the GMP?
Pierce, you can
final?
come on up.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think we should explain that.
Yes.
Yes, that's right, Teresa. Yeah, basically, what
Your
we're doing
green
with
light
this-
on, sorry.
It's on, pardon.
Okay.
it's on.
And state your name
Yep.
for the public.
I'm Pierce Koch with Hausman Construction, representing Hausman and Clark Drew, the construction team. So yes, this will go into the GMP. Ultimately, what we're doing with this sub-GMP two for each school is getting the subcontractors and the materials secured for upcoming work. I mean, we said we're roughly 6 to 7 weeks, hopefully pending a good rest of the winter here to start construction. So this will get our subcontracts locked in for the early phase of construction, as well as long lead time materials like mechanical equipment that's 8 months and switchgear, electrical and stuff like that. That's a year out. So yep, that's what we're doing with this one.
Thank
Pierce,
you.
oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, Pierce, help me out. The price and other information is on the top of page 2 of the document.
Yep.
Okay.
And we all received those.
Okay.
Oh, now I see it.
And Pierce, we view this as our last sub-GMP, or do you think we'll have an additional one
Nope,
too?
nope, that is correct. We'll
Yep.
be in the discussion in the next subcommittee meeting to talk about the final GMP timing and the next board meeting and how all that plays in together, because I expect it to be around the same time in that March board meeting, so, yep.
And just to restate, this is a strategic move on our part to make sure that we can have all the things that we need as the buildings come along on a schedule-wise.
This is obviously budget in mind, but schedule-driven mostly, so that we can keep the same timeline with a spring start and a 24 school year.
And when you accept this bid, like, I'm going to say bid, that's what it is, then do they give you a timeline as well? Or is it kind of based on,
No, so that timeline is completely driven by Hausman and Clark Drew.
Okay.
We communicate directly with them as we get them contracted.
Okay.
So that the timeline is very, it's in place. There's no changing that.
Okay.
That's our job, to manage the schedule and the budget, so that's what we do.
okay. So that, like if you get your bid in, they tell you, well, we can have it, as soon as we can have it there is here, but you can ask for it when you want it? Or how does that work?
Yeah, so we give them the information prior to bidding, so that if they can't make the timeline work.
Then
yeah,
they're not going to put the bid?
That is correct,
Okay.
yep.
Got it. Thank you, Pierce.
Pierce has like a 14-page timeline with all of this laid out. It
I
is
do,
really good,
yeah.
and really good.
Hey, Pierce, could you also cover with the board, now that this GMP has been approved, or soon to be approved, how it works when the bids come in, how they get approved, et cetera?
Yep, that's right. So we go through a strategic process, and whether it be interviews or phone calls or really dialing in the low responsible bidders so that we get the best price for the overall budget, and then ultimately ask them the questions, make sure they have the insurance requirements and all the other things that go into that. Like I said, to give, at the end, I mean, the best number possible for the school district, that'll better the bottom line of the budget at the end of the day. So, I mean, it's not a bid process and then we're done. There's a lot that goes into it behind there to make sure we have the right partner during construction to fit the timeline and the budget.
And to that, the reasoning for choosing construction manager at risk process was that we don't have to necessarily take the lowest bid, not that we don't want the lowest bid, but that we can strategically make every decision on every bid level.
And then if I'm correct, right, Pierce, on the GMP, now that it's almost approved, once those bids come in, I just got to clarify, once the bids come in, the board's action basically is done tonight, but you'll keep them informed of what bids came in.
Yep, that's correct.
Pricing, any savings in the guaranteed maximum price.
Right, and at the end, whether it be higher or lower, it'd benefit the school district if we get subcontract bids that are lower. The bottom line is better for the school district at the end of the day. So, yep, it's a very transparent process. I think we talked about it for those that were in the interview when we were hired as a CM, but it's a very transparent process to show exactly where dollars are being spent so that it's easily justified to anybody that were to ask that question, so.
I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierce, for being here. Okay, Brian, we're ready to vote. Motion passes. Now we're moving on to 10.8, the approval to establish the sub-guaranteed maximum price for the site work, structural systems, mechanical engineering, and now we're talking about for Hillcrest Elementary project with Hausman Construction and Clark Drew Construction. I'm looking for a motion of approval.
I would motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Teresa and seconded by Wes. I think we covered the questions.
We could just get that amount.
Oh, yeah, Brian, the numbers,
Yes, the
please.
price on that is $19,280,155.
There's a lot, site work and everything, lots of differences.
I guess I'm surprised that's lower than Maderi since we're doing the entirely new building.
So a lot of that related, the sites are very different and the amount of
Okay.
fill, soil materials, I mean, there's all the breakout of, yep, so.
Site work was a thing that kind of surprised a lot of our group and a lot of the committee of the differences in those lots
Right.
and the land. All right, I think we're ready for the vote. Nope, yeah, I can. Just kidding. Yep, Teresa and Wes.
And then Pierce says they're voting. The next step would be the ultimate guaranteed maximum price potentially presented at a special board meeting in March.
March, that's right. Clint and I, just for everyone, we've had some dialogue of when that would fall. I think the timeline of the next March meeting, and I don't remember the date offhand, but I think it's going to be relatively tight, so we'd likely call a special board meeting for GMP approval on each school happen at that point. I see that as a late March, Clint, and I think we'll work out that date and hopefully get something on the next board meeting agenda for what that looks like. But yep, it's a March timeline for sure.
And the factor's really outstanding because we've approved precast concrete, we've approved this tonight.
Yep.
The outstanding items still remaining, obviously demo is a big part of that.
Right, yep. Demo, all of our interior finishes, I mean, everything you see on the inside of the building. Like I said, what we've done to date for sub-GMPs is really to keep schedule. It's a
Right.
strategic move to lock in both budget and schedule reasons, Clint, so,
Excellent.
yep,
Thanks for sharing.
yes,
Thank you for being here.
yep, thank you.
All right, moving on to item 10.9, the approval of the Brookings High School Bob Josted gym floor replacement bid. Looking for a motion of approval.
So move.
Moved by Terry. I'll second that motion.
Just very briefly, we received 3 bids for the high school gymnasium floor replacement. The low bid came in from H2I Group for $321,000. We did run it through, got Pierce's opinion as well as the architect's opinion as well, and we feel that they're the lowest responsible bidder. And so we're recommending approval of H2I Group, and about $200,000 of this is covered by our insurance.
Additional questions, board members? All right, we're ready for the vote. All right, motion passes. All right, item 11, I'm looking for a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2 subsection 1 personnel.
I move approval.
Moved
To enter an
by,
executive session.
moved by Wes,
I will second that.
second by Teresa. Brian, we're ready for the vote. And just for public awareness, we don't have any action items after executive session.